Give me a minute and we'll talk about the big Russian disinformation PR stunt bullshit story of the day. All the headlines, everywhere you look today. The Russian fleet visits the port of Chittagong for the first time in 52 years. The Russians were there 52 years ago, demining the Bay of Bengal on behalf of the proud Bengali people. Yada, 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 when no one else would help them. There are so many things wrong with this story and these headlines. I'm not even sure where to begin. But let's just start with this basic fact. The Russian fleet has not been in the Bay of Bengal ever. Ever. In 1971, it was the Soviet fleet that was there. By most estimates, as much as 33% of the Soviet Navy were made up of Ukrainians. You might as well say that it was the Ukrainians that came to the assistance of the Bengalis and helped demine the Bay of Bengal in the wake of the independence movement in 1971. Now, as far as the independence movement, the independence war of 1971 that separated Bangladesh from Pakistan, it's the same old story, guys. It's the Russians causing, or at that time the Soviets, causing strife, creating separatist movements, emphasizing the differences between people so that they go to war against each other. It was the United States that attempted to stop the separatists, stop the partition, and were rebuked at Chittagong Bay when a U.S. aircraft carrier attempted to enter it by the USSR Navy. And the USSR has had its fingers in this pie for a long time, or now the Russians, of course. There's even, in Bangladesh today, there is a group called the Rapid Action Battalion, the RAB, that has been sanctioned by the U.S. for their extrajudicial killings and attempts to subvert democracy and elections in the country. Despite that, in the 50 years since Chittagong and the Bay of Bengal needed to be demined, the U.S. has sent over $10 billion, nearly $11 billion, in humanitarian and some military aid. The military aid is a very small percentage of that 50 billion, or of that 11 billion, of that 11 billion. Just last year, the United States sent $500 million in humanitarian aid to Bangladesh, a country that struggles to feed its own people because there is a group at the top that is stealing everything for themselves. It's the Russian model, for crying out loud. And this interference in Bangladesh's internal politics to support groups like the RAB, the Rapid Action Battalion, which sounds remarkably like the Rapid Response Brigade in Sudan, doesn't it? I wonder why that is. Remember, the Rapid Response Brigade in Sudan is funded by and supported by the Wagner Group, an arm of the Russian military, and is currently being hunted by Ukrainian special forces in Sudan. So this story, I'm sorry, everybody is getting this story wrong. The Russian Navy has never been in the Bay of Bengal. The Soviet Navy that was there 52 years ago, 1 in 3 sailors was a Ukrainian. The Ukrainians should be getting credit for demining that bay because they're the ones who had the technical skill to do it and undoubtedly did the bulk of the dangerous work, not the Russians. You can be sure of that. So this is just another example of how Russia lies to us and expects us to believe it. Anybody who thinks that Russia is the good guy in any of this is deluded and should really take a look at some of the facts of history.